Good afternoon, everyone. Please silence all devices for the duration of the meeting. Welcome to the July 19th, 2023 THS Board of Directors Workshop. I'm Michael English, and I'm the President and Chair of the THS Board. The meeting format is virtual with board members participating via communication media technology. I'm going to waive the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's move to the staff roll call, please.
President English.
Present.
Director Ahern. Director Hardy.
Present.
Director Johnson. Director Maniscalco. Director Mechanic.
Here.
Oh, thank you. Director Mechanic.
Here.
Director Schisler.
Here.
Thank you, President English.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is public input. Apparently no one was pre-registered to provide input. Is there anyone present in the audience who would like to comment?
No, sir.
Hearing none, let's move to the review of minutes. The next agenda item is the review of minutes from June 21st, 2023 from our regular board hybrid meeting. They're provided for review and comment only. Will be presented at the August board. Are there any proposed changes by the board? If not, let's move on to the first presentation. Justin Lappler, HART's Director of Budget and Grants, will present the fiscal year 2024 proposed budget. Mr. Lappler, you are recognized.
Good afternoon, President English, members of the THS Board. So this is the same presentation that I provided to you last month in the THS Board meeting. We haven't made any changes to the proposed budget, but we want to make sure that we have this opportunity to discuss the budget if there's anything that we want to change. And we do have a couple things that are still outstanding with this budget. Here's the things that we're going to go over today, and we'll just go over this really quickly, and please stop me if you have any questions. Here are our proposed service model for this next upcoming year, and it is the same as our current schedule. Operating statistics for fiscal year 2021 through this next budget cycle. The HART Streetcar operating revenues. This information is provided from the City of Tampa. And the one thing to note on this is that there is one thing that is outstanding that we're not completely confident in, and that is a grant from FDOT that helps us subsidize the fares. So one thing that we should discuss today is if we want to keep this in the current budget the way it is presented as we await the decision, or if we're comfortable leaving it in as is until we have a final answer from FDOT.
Please turn your phone off.
When do we expect an answer?
So we did talk to FDOT last week. We asked them if they had any update on it. They don't at this time, but they did tell us before that they hope to have an answer to us by the end of July.
What is the, if you will, the contingency that DOT is citing as to why they do not know whether they're going to provide the grant funding?
Well, the grant that they used to subsidize fares is a discretionary grant. It was a three-year grant, and it was a new program. And so since the fare freeze has been going on for 3 years, they were not expecting to give us the grant for this year. We talked to them and asked them to provide us this grant for one more year for us to figure out what our contingency will be moving forward.
Yeah, go ahead.
They say that they would let you know.
Can you repeat?
when did they say they would let you know whether the grant would continue?
What did he say? Can you repeat one more time?
When will we know the money is available?
So the discussion with them is that they hope that they would have an answer to us by the end of July.
Have any fallback positions or options?
Well, currently, the city of Tampa does reimburse HART for any funds that HART has expensed for the streetcar, and so we would have to work that out with the city of Tampa.
Yeah, but the city of Tampa is not going to subsidize the streetcar to the same degree that the DOT grant has been doing for 3 years. I mean, so we are looking at probably reducing service and charging a fare if they don't come through with the grant.
Well, let me just
Anything for that?
let me just interject that, Justin, if you get any indication that they're having a problem with this, I want to go out there with you and the CEO before they make a decision. I would be shocked if they drop us off the edge of a cliff at this point. But if you smell a problem, don't just let it get decided without a visit out there, and I want to be part of that meeting, please.
Okay. And Ms. Kirk, did you want to respond?
Yes, good afternoon to Mr. English and members of the THS board and to the staff. And as Justin has said, the original grant was innovative funding. And so now that the streetcar is not innovative, meaning it asks Mr. Drainville to apply for another pot of money. So they didn't give us the indication that they weren't going to approve it. It was just that the original funding source is no longer applicable, if you will.
Right.
So, but as was stated, and this was the conversation that we had originally, at the original board meeting, and certainly, with Mr. English, is that that's a discussion that this board eventually has to have. If the funds don't become available, do you charge fares? What do you do in that event? And that's for this board to decide. So, as Mr. English stated, we'll connect him with the state if there's some issues. But right now, they're not indicating that there's any issues, and we'll see what happens by the end of July.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Understanding that you approved this budget, hopefully, at your August board meeting, so we should have some information prior to you having to be in a position to adopt the budget as it is.
That's fair.
Well, I guess the question, not to keep on belaboring the point, but it would appear that since we're looking at a month away to having to adopt a final budget, don't we have to look at the contingency plan, whatever plan B is, for doing without the DOT funding? It's not a lot of time, is what I'm saying.
And I can
Go ahead.
I was going to speak a little bit to that. I know that there's been internal conversation at HART with the CEO of possible things that we could do to either collect fares or look for different funding to press ahead. But at this time, until we know the outcome of the grant, those are still just things that we have to discuss internally and come up with the best recommendations for this board.
Good. Justin, just as a matter, you're going to get to it in the budget, but what do you have allocated for CSX crossing insurance at this time?
Yeah, for CSX insurance, and that was actually the other outstanding issue. Right now, we have budgeted $795,000, and one of the things that there's been lots of discussion over is that may be able to come down greatly, and so that may make a big impact on this budget as well.
Well, that's correct, and I've been a part of all of that. I've been talking with our insurance agent and Mr. Smoker and Vic Bede and others in the city on conference calls. We have another one scheduled in about 10 days. At this point, it looks like we can reduce that to at least $500,000 and perhaps more. So I am hoping and anticipating a significant savings in the crossing insurance, which will help. I will know more about that. I'll know where we are on that well before our August board meeting, and we'll do a call with HART and explain where we are. Actually, HART's included on these conference calls, so Grant's pretty sure we can do this much less expensively this year.
Yeah, that's definitely great news. So before the final budget hearing presentation that we have next month, I'll make sure that I make that change to $500K or any amount that we've discussed and we're comfortable with.
I think we'll have a number by then that you can accurately plug in.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay, so
I'll carry on. What you see in front of you right now is the HART Streetcar operating expenses. And we see roughly a 6% increase between 2023 and next year's proposed budget. And here you can see, this is where you can see the CSX insurance and where we budgeted at $795,000 for fiscal year 24. So that's where you would see that amount change. Here's the combined HART and THS operating budget. And full-time employees. So a couple things to note here. This is pretty much the same as it was in previous times, except there are a couple positions that are utilized by the streetcar, but that's not included in the streetcar budget. So 2 road supervisors that support the streetcar operations are not charged. They are actually charged the HART's operating budget. And our capital expenses that we propose for fiscal year 24, so vehicle maintenance of $1.2 million and infrastructure maintenance at $135,000. So our next steps would be to move this along, with our updates that we get from the FDOT grant and the CSX insurance to the August 16th board for approval. And then in September, we have public hearings with the HART Board of Directors to adopt HART operating and capital budgets, and that's inclusive of the streetcar. Are there any further questions?
Gil Schultz, I got a question. Can we go back to page 6, salaries and wages? You have the budget variance is about 6%, but the actual to budget going forward is almost 14%. What is the major difference between the 23 projection versus the 24 budget? And concurrently, the fringe benefits are a significant increase also. What's dragging that along?
If I could help with that, this is Loretta Kirk. I'm going to ask the director of Streetcar. We did budget full rates last year. He did the higher until later on. So if you could, Brian, if you could just explain that, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, very quickly. It was, we have contractual increases with all our bargaining employees. and also the fringe benefits. I've got quite a few senior people that are now at a much higher pay rate than they were before with the new contract.
So how many new people do we have? Or how many new people are in the, how many additional associates are in the new budget?
We didn't, there are no new positions in this budget.
So everybody's been hired that's going to be hired.
Hopefully. We always have a bit of attrition with our operators, so.
We're going to have some, but for the most part, we're at full staffing levels.
Correct.
Okay. Still a big number. Okay.
Any further questions?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I think we lost President English. Oh, there he is.
President English, we can't hear you. President English, you're on mute. You're still on mute? I apologize, President English, we still can't hear you. Would you be able to possibly call in?
He's muted.
Yeah, President English, we lost the audio connection with you. We just see you on video, but lost audio connection. If you don't mind, we could go ahead with the agenda, and maybe you would like to log out or log in. Thank you, sir. So next is marketing report. Mr. Frank Wazinski, Manager of Communications and Marketing, you're recognized to present the marketing report.
Thank you, President English and the THS Board. So I presenting the report for June 2023. I don't want to steal Brian's thunder, but ridership for the month was 152,328, which was the second busiest month that we've had in 20 years of the streetcar. So ridership was up over 66% over June of last year. And year to date, the ridership is over 1 million. It's 1,074,963. So that's 30% over year over year. So, you know, the ridership is still going pretty gangbusters. Throughout the month, we had Representative Castor and Quigley from Illinois visit. They rode the streetcar. They took a tour of the streetcar facility. Marketing supported by creating a streetcar ridership and milestones flyer, and we promoted the visit on social media as well. USF, the Access 3D lab, had been doing unique scannings, 3D scans of the streetcars and the streetcar stations. And so marketing promoted that on social media as well as pitched that to media outlets. It's kind of a unique process, and it's kind of a special interest story, so we did that. As part of that, we'll also be receiving 3D prints of the scans, and we have the ability to utilize those for giveaways and things like that. As you can see in the photo there, they did 3D scans of the breezer, so it'll be kind of cool to be able to have little mini scales, actual 3D giveaways that we can do of the breezer and the various different streetcars. As far as moving on, we had 7 streetcars operators that were recognized throughout the month, and that's a great safety message. So we promoted that on social media, as well as highlighted the great work of the staff. You could see Connie, who's been with us for 20 years on the streetcar side and 1 year on the bus side, was part of those that were honored. And then finally, the streetcar service. We promoted streetcar service to a various number of events, mostly concerts. There's a couple of the conventions that started to come back at the Tampa Convention Center as well. Finally, Streetcar Live is taking a break. The last show was in May, and so now we're working with Gasparilla Music Festival to develop the fall schedule for Streetcar Live. Then moving on, as far as the media for the month, you can see that Allegiant Airlines, we actually had a feature in their onboard magazine, so we worked with Allegiant Airlines on that. And WMNF, HART staff did a 1 hour segment on the skinny for WMNF. And the streetcar extension and enhanced streetcar service was mentioned throughout the discussion. You can see a couple of the other stories there, the USF story. So if you're interested, you can learn more about that project there. And then finally, the City of Tampa launched a climate action and equity plan, and the streetcar extension and is referenced in that document and in that article. So that's all I have for June. Oh, and I'm sorry. And then also the Vector sales. We have Water Street actually joined us for 3 months. They will that contract ends in September, and then the Tampa Bay Lightning will be coming on board the following 3 months. This wasn't mentioned at the last meeting because we didn't report, but the Winter Village Express car has been identified, so we won't have any kind of snafus, and that will be the Water Street car. Coors has extended 2 cars for an additional month. And the year-to-date revenue is to THS is $71,754.18. Did you want me to go straight into the streetcar? Yeah. So we had mentioned as far as the marketing opportunities, we're currently working with Vector Media on reviewing the station sponsorships and naming rights program. I brought this up at a previous meeting. We're looking at what our new advertising program looks like. We currently have a wait list on the streetcar side, and so we're looking at opportunities of how to get them involved throughout the system. And so we do have stations available, and that's partly the only station that we currently have aside from the legacy sponsor stations, HSBC and Streetcar Society station. Publix obviously is a current naming rights sponsor. And Vector has currently sold station takeovers, not including naming rights, to Central Ybor and Amalie Arena for the Rays and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Lowry Park Zoo is currently on Station 3. But we do have a number of stations that are still available. So Vector is looking at York and Cumberland stations for a station takeover with White Claw. And then Dick Greco, we currently have our 20th anniversary advertising on Dick Greco Plaza. But Tampa General Hospital is looking to take that over after after the fiscal year is up, and that would include the banner, which is kind of the big prize there. I think that's quite a bit of revenue to THS. We're currently working with Vector though to try to look at the pricing and to try to get more people involved in the advertising and naming rights. Like I said, the streetcars are a hot commodity, but we're trying to kind of spread that love throughout the system. And so, we're working with Vector on what that program looks like and what the station, if we can put together a better package and be more, favorable for promotion and advertising on the different stations. Well, and we're also trying to focus more on community sponsorships. You know, the one thing is we currently have several sponsors that are either beer or liquor, and we're trying to get more of that community sponsorship. So Laurie Park Zoo is a good start. The Water Street, Tampa, coming on board is a great start. And so we're trying to build that out and spread the love. So one of the things we're looking to do is, we've talked with Brian, we're looking to take one of the cars back, unwrapped, to keep it unwrapped for marketing promotions. You know, we've had Visit Tampa Bay reach out to us a number of times. They shot some video last week. And it just, you know, it's kind of funky having a big, you know, White Claw or something on it. So we want to keep, just like we do on the bus side, we do want to keep back a streetcar for ourselves and our purposes. You know, but look at different ways we can utilize these community partnerships, you know, like Laurie Park Zoo, and build those relationships within the community. So we'll be coming back at some point to hopefully with some good news on that part. So, any questions?
I have a question that might be better suited for Justin. The revenue projections for advertising and so forth, and the naming rights in the budget for next year. How's that developed? Does that include full absorption of all the potential sites, or just existing sites, or how have we factored in some of these open cars / bus stop locations? How much risk is in the number that you have in the revenue for this type of revenue source?
As we were talking about before, we use Vector as our agent in this case. They provide us a guaranteed number.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Oh, and then, I'm sorry, one last thing to bring up. So there's a great opportunity that, as you see here in front of you, Monopoly is creating a Tampa edition. And so Hasbro and the company Top Trumps, I think, is the company behind Monopoly. They're looking for nominations for nonprofits and other organizations. You know, what better than the Streetcar to be Tampa's railroad on that board? So we do have a meeting with the Monopoly people, so to speak, in terms of getting that. They reached out to us in terms of getting involved in that. So I think that's a great opportunity for the Streetcar, you know, from an advertising promotion standpoint. So we've been spreading the word to have people nominate us, and it looks like it worked. So we'll have more information on that later.
Can we pay for the service in Monopoly money?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board? So Frank? Well, thank you so much, Frank, for the reports. Next on the agenda is Mr. Brian Allen, our Director of Streetcar Operations, will share the Streetcar Performance Report for June 2023.
Good afternoon, President English, members of the board. For June, of the 4,268 trips we were scheduled to run, we experienced 99.25 missed trips. The missed trips were caused by a shortage of operators. That was 80 trips. We had 16.5 trips caused by mechanical issues. 2 trips canceled because of high water on the line, and 3/4 of a trip because having to clean a car. That being said, we had 19 reported late departures, putting our OTP at 99.55%. We had 1 accident in June. It was an incident, I'm sorry. On June 26th, streetcar 432 was southbound at Station 4, which is Kadrisha. The motorman didn't see an improper line switch and ran through, and he derailed the wheel set on the car. There were no injuries, there was no damage to the car, and our maintenance personnel quickly re-railed the car. We did not provide any extra service in June. As Frank said, our passenger count was incredible at 152,328. Of those, 131 were ADA boardings. And in our last meeting, I didn't have ridership for May. My May ridership was 85,939. That was actually down from the previous year of 89,651. We just didn't have the activities in town for May that we had the previous year. And finally, 2 of our trainees for motormen have resigned. I also had 2 other resignations, so currently we are recruiting for 4 positions. And on June 20th through the 23rd, we had FDOT on site for state safety oversight. They reviewed all our procedures, and we had no findings from them. That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Great report. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, yes.
Lena, thank you so much for running the meeting. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
That's a great report, Brian. And Frank, that was an excellent marketing report. Very exciting. I can't wait to see the Tampa Monopoly game with the streetcar on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Very excited.
A question about the operator positions. How many applicants do you typically see when you have an opening?
Oh, that really depends. The last time we had 9 applicants for 5 positions. We scheduled all of them, and I believe we had 5 show up for the interviews, and we hired 4 of them.
Interesting.
It definitely has changed since the pandemic. Before the pandemic, we would have, 20 people applying for it.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. Any other questions? Thank you, Brian. Great report. Let's move to legal and legislative. Clay, I don't think you have any reports to make today. I've covered what Mr. Smoker and I are doing on the CSX insurance. Is there anything else, Clay, that you need to discuss with us?
I have nothing to report.
Great, thank you. Any questions, legal questions? The chair's report, really it's been about CSX insurance for the past 6 weeks or a couple months, and I'm determined that we're going to spend a lot less than we did last year. So I hope to have really good news for everybody early next month. So let's move to Mr. Granville's report if he's available.
President English, Mr. Drainville is now with legislative visits in Washington, D.C. Hopefully also will return with good news. So he is not attending this meeting. He will give his report at the August meeting. Thank you.
That sounds fine. Thank you so much. Compliance reports are in your file. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? Hearing none, and I really appreciate everybody's interest in the budget. The Streetcar budget gets larger every year, and it is what it is. And I'm very proud of how our streetcar is operated and how many people it carries. And I think HART is doing a wonderful job of operating it, and I really appreciate everybody involved. So with that said, if there's no further business, let's consider this meeting adjourned, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
That's great. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for using WebEx. Visit our website at www.webex.com.